It's going to be Chong-Li, a story that's read by Ms. Petra Langevin from the National Library. You may have noticed that I passed over National Dance Company, but they've asked that we save the best for the last. And so, put your hands together for Ms. Petra Langevin.
Good evening, everyone. My story is entitled Chong-Li by Yunbin Giuseppe. Chong-Li, propped on his thin elbows, leaned over the counter, his chin resting dejectedly between his cupped hands. A cigarette hung limply from his lips. Near him, silently puffing at a cigarette. The trail was bad, very bad for Chong-Li these days. Had been in fact for some months now. Why, he remembered the time when everybody in the village had bought their goods from him. Chong-Li always had everything. What busy days those had been for him. But that was before the big rich man had opened a store higher up the street. The modern grocery, they called it. It was well stocked with everything. Chong-Li still had everything too, but scarcely anyone bought from him now. They all flocked to the modern grocery. Every day he saw them pass. At first, feeling half ashamed, they would slip by quickly, hoping Chong-Li had not seen. Then gradually they ceased to care. Who was Chong-Li anyway? Just an old Chinaman who couldn't speak English very well. They passed now boldly before his open doors, seldom even worrying to glance his way. Occasionally, when they wanted something in a hurry and could not spare the time to go higher up the street for it, they would come in and buy. Perhaps a pound of sugar or an ounce of butter, never anything much. And always without complaining, he gave them what they asked for. Sometimes old Sultan would come in and keep his company. Together they would sit and smoke and talk. Time was when he never had chance for that, too busy serving his customers. Now he was glad when Sultan came. It was Sultan who had told him how many attendants they had up here at that other store. Attendants all dressed in spick and span uniforms. Chong-Li looked down at his own torn vest. He needed a new one, but no customers, no money to buy one just now. Up there, the floor was paved with pretty tiles. His floor was old now. The boards creaked as he walked upon them. Up there, they had a whirring machine which cut thin slices of bacon. He had no such thing. Yes, Sultan had told him all. He himself had never been there, would never go there. He would stay in his own shop, keeping the doors open as long as he could. Mary Atkins came briskly up the street. It was Monday morning, and she had left the clothes soaking in the tub at home. She wanted half a bar of soap. She had forgotten to buy them from the grocery last Saturday. She would just step in at Chong-Li and get it quickly. She had a lot of work to do today. Chong-Li saw her coming. It was Mary Atkins who, in those first days, came when the new store opened, had flounced by on her way there. China Mall one new shop too. She laughed as she passed. He had heard her himself. Chong-Li puffed at his cigarette and turned to Sultan. You know, he said, I give you tea. Milk very scarce too. One time one body get 16, 18, much as them one. Soon one body get wanted. No more. No ship coming long time. Sultan shook his head sadly. This one, nobody get much nothing. Chong-Li, morning, Mary Atkins said. Morning, Chong-Li returned and went on talking to Sultan. Me have a couple case left. Who buys something else get milk. No buy something else, no milk. Got to do so. Milk very scarce soon. He turned to Mary Atkins. What you want? Half bar soup. Chong-Li laid it on the counter. 1 egg, a pound sugar. Next thing, he asked, weighing and folding the sugar, 2 tins of milk. Chong-Li took 1 tin of milk from the shelf and placed it resolutely beside the other 2 parcels. Body buy plenty things, more milk. Few things, little milk. Milk very scarce too. But Chong-Li, 39 cents, cut in Chong-Li. The woman gathered up her parcels, paid, and left. On her way back home, she stopped for a moment to tell Lisa D that milk was getting scarce. She heard Chongli telling Suta, Chongli only gave me one thing, but he got more. You better buy something and try and get some before all gone. I going back again too, Lisa called her daughter. Finish, see after this breakfast, she said. I going up at Chongli for milk. By the time she reached Chongli's shop, there were two other friends with her. A pound of bacon, Chongli, 2 pounds of flour, half pound of pork, a tin of grapefruit, and 4 pounds of milk. She got it. You know, Sultan, Chongli attempted to resume the conversation which had been broken off by the woman's entry. Come, Chongli, I got to get home. I want 2 pounds of cornmeal, pounds of salt meat, 4 pounds of flour, a bar of cooking oil, and 6 tins of milk. Chongli placed four tins beside the other goods and turned to the next customer. You know, next day when Sultan came, Chongli was too busy to talk to him. Sultan sat in the usual place, smoked 2 or 3 cigarettes, and then went home. And it continued like that for the rest of the week. Chongli had never been so busy, not even in the days before the new grocery was open. Late Saturday night, he closed his shop doors. He was hot and tired, very, very tired. He had served so many customers that day, he fingered his torn old vest. It was wet with perspiration. Chongli puffed at his cigarette between his lips, but it had gone out some time before. He threw it on the floor, undressed, and went to bed. Must order more goods next week, he thought. Mentally, he checked off the things he would need. Rice, flour, sugar, cornmeal, bacon, sausages, milk. Before him rose the vision of the many cases which for a long time had lain in the back of the shop with no one to buy them. Milk very scarce too. He laughed softly, turned over and went to sleep. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Ms. Petra Langevin, for that story, Chongli. And we move to the next item on the program this evening. And we're going to have a representative from Venezuelan Embassy. And we'll have one reading in Spanish, one reading in English. The story is called Engineer. They have a special request for us to distribute copies of the story because the entire story cannot be read tonight. Put your hands together for Ms. Lillian Manu and Ms. Awia Akbar.
Thank you very much. Yes, as we say, we want to read the story named The Engineer. We take it from the book Las Artes y los Oficios. Las Artes y los Oficios mean arts and occupation. It was written by Aníbal Nazoa. Is an author, a Venezuelan author. Because the story is very long. It's basically a description of the engineer profession. We're only going to read a small part. And we're going to do it in both languages, Spanish and English, because we don't want to lose the flavor of the Spanish literature. No existe en el mundo ninguna profesión con más prestigio que la del ingeniero. Todo padre moderno, en lo profundo de su alma, sueña con un hijo ingeniero. Y el niño que no responda ingeniero al preguntársele qué quiere ser cuando sea grande, es visto de reojo y puesto bajo vigilancia, porque cualquier otra respuesta es considerada como síntoma de pereza, falta de seriedad y hasta un verdadero trastorno de la conducta.
There is no other profession in the world with more prestige than that of the engineer. All modern fathers, in the depths of their soul, dream of having an engineer son. And the son that does not respond engineer when asked what he wants to be when he grows up is looked at disapprovingly and put under surveillance, because any other reply is considered a symptom of laziness, a lack of seriousness, and even a behavioral disorder.
Se ha llegado a creer, y es una exageración afirmar que si Dios tiene alguna profesión, debe ser la de ingeniero.
It has even been exaggerated that if God has any profession, it can be no other than an engineer.
El ingeniero posee el secreto de las matemáticas. Habla un lenguaje tan incomprensible para nosotros como el de los sacerdotes faraónicos para el egipcio medio. Y para descifrar sus jeroglíficos no hay todavía ninguna piedra roseta. Basta ver a un ingeniero trazando mucho para sentirse que uno está en presencia de un ser sobrenatural. Él no lo hace como todos los mortales. El movimiento de escribir una S y cruzarla cerrando con otra S al revés. Él hace el 8 como los niños pequeños, ligeramente mayor, dibujando un círculo pegado a otro ligeramente mayor, pero trazando ambos con tal precisión que no hay imprenta que sea igual.
The engineer holds the secret of mathematics. He speaks a language as incomprehensible to us as the language of the priests of the Pharaoh was to the average Egyptian, and there is still no Rosetta Stone to decipher their hieroglyphs. Just seeing an engineer drawing an 8 is enough to make you feel as if you are in the presence of a supernatural being. He does not let all mortals make the motion of writing an S and then crossing it with a backward S closing. He draws the 8 like the little children, drawing a little circle attached to another slightly larger circle, but both are drawn with such precision that there is no print reader to decode it.
Pero también se basa el culto al ingeniero en el hecho indiscutible de que él es uno de los puntales más firmes de nuestra querida democracia. De sus manos salen las autopistas, los puentes, las distribuidoras, las represas y demás elementos que orientan al electorado en el momento con el cumplir del sagrado deber y ejercer el no menos sagrado derecho de los sufragios. Los bloques y los superbloques, las pausas de toros, los gimnasios cubiertos de la democracia, aunque sean diseñados por los arquitectos, necesitan el cálculo del ingeniero para poder ser levantados en la realidad. Si no hubiera ingenieros, ¿cómo podría el presidente de la República salir a cortar cintas en los días de regocijo patrio y en vísperas de la campaña electoral? Y si el presidente no corta cintas, ¿cómo íbamos a saber a quién debemos dar nuestro voto? El ingeniero es la sal de la vida democrática.
This worship of the engineer is also based on the indisputable fact that he is one of the strongest pillars of our beloved democracy. From his hands come the highways, bridges, distributors, dams, and other elements that guide the electorate of the time to fulfill their sacred duty and exercise the no less sacred right of voting. The blocks and superblocks, the arenas, the indoor gymnasiums of democracy, even though they are designed by architects, they need the engineer's estimate in order to be made reality. If there were no engineers, how could the President of the Republic go out to cut ribbons in the days of patriotic celebration and in the days leading up to election campaign? And if the President did not cut ribbons, how would we know to whom we should give our vote? The engineer is the salt of democracy, of democratic life.
Los ingenieros se parecen a los generales en su don de mando y su habilidad como conductores de hombres. Una obra de ingeniería es como una acción de guerra. Así se dice que la batalla tal la ganó fulano de tal, sin mencionar para nada a los centenares de hombres que se rompieron el arma para librarla. Así también se dice, ese edificio lo hizo el ingeniero mengano, sin dedicar el menor recuerdo a los albañiles que arriesgaron sus vidas en los andamios. Y aunque el ingeniero mengano jamás haya hecho ni siquiera el esfuerzo por aprender a pegar un ladrillo.
Engineers are like generals in their ability to command and their capacity as leaders of men. An engineering project is like an act of war, just as it is said that the battle was won by General What's His Name, with no mention of the hundreds of men who gave up their souls to fight it. In the same way, it is said that building was done by engineers so-and-so, without the slightest memory of the construction workers who risked their lives on the scaffolds, even though the engineer has never even made the effort to learn how to lay a brick.
Los ingenieros también se parecen a los economistas, por supuesto por lo enrevesado de su lenguaje. Cualquiera se sobrecoge de espanto cuando ve a dos ingenieros hablando.
They are certainly like the economists in the complexity of the language. Anyone would be overwhelmed to hear when he hears two engineers talking.
Por eso es que si un abogado cobra 6.000 bolívares por sacar a un reo de la cárcel, decimos que ese es un tracalero, lo cual desde luego puede ser cierto. Y si un médico pide 8.000 bolívares por operar un apéndice, lo llamamos un chupasangre. Pero si un ingeniero exige 35.000 bolívares por levantar un murito para que los perros del vecino no se metan en el jardín, nadie ni chica.
That is why if a lawyer charges 6,000 bolivars for getting a prisoner out of jail, he said that it's robbery, which certainly may be true. And if a doctor asks for 8,000 to operate on an appendix, we call him a bloodsucker, same as it was before. But if an engineer demands 35,000 for raising a low wall to keep the neighbor's dogs out of the garden, nobody argues.
Los ingenieros se parecen a los hombres de negocio en que por lo regular son hombres de negocios. Cuando un ingeniero alcanza cierto punto en su carrera hacia la prosperidad, deja de ser el ingeniero para convertirse en la compañía. Y cuando llega a hacerse demasiado próspero, entonces pasa a ser la firma. Algo así como un Walt Disney de la ingeniería.
They're similar to those businessmen that are typically businessmen. When an engineer reaches a certain point in his career close to prosperity, he ceases to be the engineer and becomes the company. And when he gets to be overly prosperous, he then becomes the firm, something like the Walt Disney of engineering.
Entonces el ingeniero ya no dibuja ni calcula, se limita a firmar, y lo demás lo hacen otros ingenieros menos afortunados, porque también los hay. Soldados anónimos en la gran batalla de la construcción. Al igual que en otras profesiones, en la de ingeniero es preciso tener visión futurista y si no se quiere terminar como un simple empleado de la compañía, lo cual suele suceder con mucha frecuencia a aquellos que escogen la carrera de ingeniería por inclinaciones científicas, la diferencia entre la compañía y el pobre ingeniero científico se puede apreciar claramente al oír las expresiones que el público dedica a uno y al otro. Del ingeniero limpio se dice, ese hombre es una lumbrera. Y de la compañía se dice, el tronco de contrato.
He no longer draws or calculates. He limits himself to signing, and everything else is done by the other less fortunate engineers, which also exists. Anonymous soldiers in the great battle of construction. As in other professions, the engineer must have a futuristic vision if he does not want to end up a mere employee of the company, which tends to happen quite often to those who choose a career in engineering for purely scientific inclinations. The difference between the company and the core scientific engineer can be clearly grasped on hearing the expressions used by the public to compare one or the other by their work. Of the clean engineer, they say, this man is a genius. Of the company, they say, what a contract.
Los ingenieros también se parecen a los médicos en que los errores de los médicos se tapan con tierra y los de los ingenieros se tapan con tierra, piedra, cemento, acero y ladrillos.
They're similar to doctors in that the errors of the doctors are covered up with dirt, and those of the engineers are covered with dirt, rocks, cement, steel, and bricks.
And so the story goes on, but we want to leave it here. We don't want to go too long. It goes on with more description of what is an engineer, specifically in the Venezuelan society. Thank you very much for listening.
Thanks very much for that story, engineer. Maybe we could try to determine how different is the Guyanese engineer from the Venezuelan part. Put your hands together once more, please. And now we're going to invite an item that you would not find on your program. Mr. Daniel Jai Singh is going to come and tell a story to us, and it's called A Cricketer I Admire. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Here we're celebrating World Storytelling Day under the theme Moon and Monsters, Monsters and Dragons rather. And while my fellow participants would have showcased dramatization pertaining to folklore, it is very important to know that we as individuals, we also have monsters within us. And some of those monsters can be monsters of determination. My piece is entitled A Cricket I Admire, and from this, we can be drawn to how determined we can be to persevere. Quote, we too in the Caribbean community celebrate your many successes, especially because you have displayed humility, consistency, exemplary sportsmanship, a commitment to teamwork and to the success of our beloved West Indies team. Unquote, said Mr. Edwin Carrington, former head of the CARICOM Secretariat, at the award ceremony when the cricketer I admire was awarded Guyana's third highest national award, the Cassie Crown of Honor. Those are the distinguishing qualities that make him the cricketer I admire. Born on August 18, 1974 in Unity Village, Demerara Mahaika was a tiger, as he's prominently known. Shivnarine Chandrapal is a true inspiration to me. His exceptional qualities have significantly aided me to tailor my life in a much disciplined manner. I admire him on many perspectives. I admire him for his belief in God. I am truly moved how he acknowledges God in his accomplishments. For example, on September 10th, after winning the Sir Garfield Sobert Trophy for the ICC Cricketer of the Year, he said, quote, I am honored to be given this prestigious award, and I am thankful for the blessing. And I'm thankful rather for God to bless me with the talent I have, unquote. Chandrapal has touched my life on a very personal level by helping me to turn to God for guidance and support. It is those monsters within us that help us to develop our potential. I may not be the perfect young individual in society, but I'm quite proud to say that I have become a strong believer of God. I admire Chandrapal because he has taught me that money is not everything. He has taught me to pursue whatever I want with determination, and everything will fall into place. I live by his words, quote, I would do what I do, play cricket, even if nobody was willing to pay me for it. It is one thing I'm good at. It is one thing I love doing, all day, every day. Those are the type of monstrous potential we need to have in us. Among the many other reasons I admire Tiger are for his courageous and challenging personalities. In 2009, when asked about his reputation, he said, quote, I'm not sure what my reputation is, but I'm just like any other batsman. Once I'm settled in, I can be difficult to get out. Sometimes, these days, I tend to be more relaxed, but sometimes I'm under pressure because of the situation the team is in. That sort of pressure can actually help me play better, unquote. For example, when I'm doing a group assignment with a deadline to meet and there's hopelessness in everyone, I reassure myself and everyone in the group that if Chandrapal can play better under pressure, we can meet our deadline despite our situation. Chandrapal's techniques in solving problems and his unselfishness are impossible not to admire. At the age of 8, his father and uncle would take him to the field to play cricket. He was bowled very toughly and would go home sometimes and comfort himself with water, easing the pain of the bruises. Yet still, those bruises had not discouraged him from going back to the fields. If at age 8 he could have endured such tough situations, then nothing is going to keep me back from accomplishing my dreams. And as such, you also need to develop such potential in your own selves and belief. I admire Chandrapal for his patriotism and development of Guyana. Mr. Edwin Carrington also said to Chandrapal, quote, you have set yourself apart as a positive role model for youth and especially for young aspiring West Indies cricketers, and are a source of inspiration for all of us in the region. All of Shivnarine Chandrapal's distinctive qualities are summarized in his own words when asked in 2009 about his career. He said, quote, it all comes down to the amount of work I put into my game and the blessing of God. Anything can happen on the park, so you need a bit of luck. All I have done is working hard on eliminating my mistakes and staying focused when I'm batting. These are the type of motivating statements I like to hear as a young person. So what I basically want to share with you is that we in our own selves, as I said in my opening statement, we have monsters in our own selves. Monsters of determination that can lead us to greater potential than we think we don't have. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mr. Jai Singh, for that story about our own hero. We'll move to the next item, but before I introduce the next item, I need to remind you that we will be meeting here again next Tuesday, and we're going to have a wonderful time celebrating World Poetry Day. So please mark it on the calendar next Tuesday at 5. We will be here, same place, 5 p.m. The next item is going to be a story from the Embassy of the Federation of Brazil. It's a Brazilian story. Sorry, I didn't mean it. Please put your hands together for a story from Brazil.
Good evening all. I am Elman Ba, a student of the MC, and this here is one of the teachers that is employed. Tonight I have a story from a book, ABS Anthologies by the Brazilian Academy of Lectures. It's a fictional book. I have a fictional story also, and it's named The Experiment. I will read it in English, and then on part it will read it in Portuguese. The Experiment. Statistics, numbers, the civilization of technology. So, a few scientist monks decided to demonstrate that there is something imponderable which escapes materialism, which turns man into the unhappiest creature in the world. In a laboratory were planted 3 seeds in absolutely identical conditions. Same soil, same light, and same water on the 3 spots where the 3 identical seeds were planted. The only difference was that when a scientist monk watered the earth with the first pot, he said aloud, words of enthusiasm and hope, words of love. I want you to grow beautiful and strong because I trust you. Because right now, I'm giving you my blessing from the bottom of my heart, etc., etc. In front of the second pot, he remained in silence and watered the pot in a mechanical way. However, when he got to the third pot, he only said words of hostility and disaffection. You will be an anemic and an ugly plant. I do not believe in your survival. Can you hear me? I don't like you. It hurt him. The others heard him as well and felt the difference in truth. The beloved seed resulted in a strong and beautiful plant. The seed watered with indifference grew indifferent without the exuberance of the first. As for the rejected seed, it became an obscure plant with a crooked stem and timid things, his head out. Now my counterpart is Suela Amaral.
Boa noite. Estatísticas, números, a civilização da tecnologia. A civilização da tecnologia, então, alguns cientistas monstros resolveram demonstrar que existe alguma coisa de imponderável que escapa a esse materialismo que está fazendo do homem o mais infeliz dos seres. Num laboratório foram plantadas 3 sementes em condições e circunstâncias absolutamente iguais. Igual à terra, a iluminação e água regada nos 3 vasos, onde foram colocadas as sementes trigêmeas. Uma única diferença: nesse tratamento. Quando o cientista monge regava a terra do primeiro vaso, dizia em voz alta palavras de fervor e esperança. Palavras de amor. Quero que você cresça bela e forte, porque confio em você, porque neste instante mesmo estou lhe dando minha bênção do fundo do coração. Mas, diante do segundo vaso, em silêncio e automaticamente, ele deixava cair a água. Quando chegava a vez do terceiro vaso, ele só tinha palavras de hostilidade, desafeto. Você será uma plantinha anêmica, feia. Eu não acredito na sua sobrevivência. Está me ouvindo? Não gosto de você. Ela ouviu, as outras também ouviram e sentiram a diferença do tratamento. A semente bem-amada resultou numa planta vigorosa e cheia de graça. A semente regada com indiferença cresceu indiferente, sem a exuberância da primeira. Quando a semente rejeitada, esta virou uma planta obscura de caule entortado e folhas tímidas, a cabeça pendida para o chão. Thank you.
Very much, and I think I need to borrow the title of the story because I overlooked the Mexican embassy, so I'll say sorry, I didn't mean it. Now we're going to listen to a story titled Executions. It's going to be told by Mr. Alejandro, I hope I get the name correct, Martinez from the Mexican embassy.
Thank you very much. I warned my boss that there were some smiles. I'm Alejandro Martinez, diplomatic attaché at the Embassy of Mexico, on behalf of the Mexican ambassador, Francisco Guillen, who entrusted me with the responsibility of delivering to then the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport for this invitation and the opportunity to address to such precious audience. I am going to tell you a story by Julio Torri, a Mexican professor and writer from northern Mexico who was born in 1889. He was part of the generation that included other distinguished Mexicans as Alfonso Reyes, Diego Rivera, and José Vasconcelos. The author was a youth during the Mexican Revolution, the first social revolution of the 20th century. This story develops in 1950 and is about a person who will be executed by a firing squad. Executions are frequently portrayed to be common in those days, and that may be true since those days were very convulsed time. Enjoy. Executions. Execution is an institution that suffers from some disadvantages in present. First of all, it is practiced in the early hours of the morning. Even to die, you need to rise early. Ruefully said to me a colleague of mine on the scaffold, who became the most notable assassin of our time. The dew from the grass sadly wets our shoes, and the freshness of the atmosphere keeps us cold. The charm of the diaphanous countryside disappears with the morning mists. The lack of education of the officers of the firing squad snatches away from the executions many of their best supporters. Definitely, gone are the good ways that long ago used to make our living sweet and noble, keeping our daily affairs grace and decorum. Rough experiences are revealed in the peculiar courtesy of soldiers. Even the most courageous men feel belittled, humiliated by the treatment of those who can hardly refrain a moment from the harsh occupation of keeping orders and punishment. The common soldiers sometimes have a deplorable appearance: old clothes, long beards, shoes covered in dust, and the worst grubiness found in people. Although you spend just a few moments before them, you have no other choice but to excruciatingly suffer this atrocious view. This explains why many inmates who are sentenced to the last penalty request to be blindfolded. On the other hand, when one asks for a tobacco as a last request, it will be provided of awful quality by merciful ladies who possess an admirable zeal and a naive ignorance on the subject of bad habits. The same happens with the small glass of liquor which anticipates the ceremony. The paleness of many in the final trance does not come from any other thing but from the low quality of the liquor that tears their entrails. The audience of this kind of entertainment is always large. It's made up of people of humble backgrounds, poor sensitivity, and bad taste in arts. Nothing more hateful than to stand before such speakers. You maintain a sober attitude, noble and natural expression in vain. No one appreciates it. Insensibly, you see yourselves compelled to the crude phrases of such tricksters. And then, there is the lack of execution specialists in the daily press. Whoever writes about theater and sports will write about executions and fires. Pernicious conceptual confusion. An execution and a fire are neither a sport nor a theatrical spectacle. It is here where the bombastic style that afflicts the connoisseur originates. Those expressions that make such painful reading as bees remove, the contents show contrition, the terrible punishment, and so on. If the government wants to effectively prevent the escape of those who are condemned to the ultimate penalty, they shouldn't double up the security guards, nor raise the prison walls. They should only refine the irksome details and ridiculous apparatus of an act which, in the eyes of some, still holds some importance. Thank you.